Hello, YouTube. It's good to be with you here on a Saturday. It was already going to be a long weekend for the San Jose Sharks. A couple days without games, but as you're already probably aware, their next two scheduled against the Las Vegas Golden Knights, those are going to be postponed because multiple players and coaches for Las Vegas are in the COVID-19 protocol. Now, in just a second, right, one of the main points of this video is going to be the schedule, and these games are going to have to be made up. But to be honest here, and we'll dive into this more, I don't necessarily see the room and the place for flexibility with these two teams to get back-to-back games in. Maybe they'll split them up. We'll talk about options in just a second. But more importantly than all of that, the first thing I want to say is that my thoughts are with everybody in the Las Vegas organization. And I know this is a sports thing and it's a rivalry thing and there's a built-in amount of tension between franchises and, that's a whole conversation in itself. And that's fine during normal times. These are not normal times. My thoughts are with them, everybody on that team, their families. I don't know how much this has spread. Am I really interested to know what's going on with them? Sure, we all are. But the NHL is doing it this way where they release so much information, some names, a lot of anonymity as part of this, and not a lot of details. How much has COVID spread throughout the Golden Knights team? So again, more than anything, I care about all those people as human beings, and I wish all of them the best. I didn't want to see this, forget for a sports and a strategy standpoint, I did not want to see this for a human standpoint. Okay. So beyond that, there's also the way that this impacts the San Jose Sharks kind of in a fortunate way. Because of these games not being played and because they were originally going to be played, well, actually they were going to be played in reality in Arizona, the Sharks can now just come home and spend a few days in San Jose with their families. They have been on the road almost 40 days in a row when you count training camp and the first 8 road games of the season. And as has been documented here and on television and on social media, human beings and hockey players, they're not meant to endure that. You're just not. But they did. And I won't even talk about games and win-loss record. I'm just not going there. They survived that. Good for them. And now they get to reap a little bit of the benefit here of some downtime and just going home. Now, they're going to go back on the road for their next 2 games, but just to be with their family and to kind of reset, right? So before we get into the hockey stuff, they get to reset their lives, which is ultimately most important. Okay, so I'm happy for that. Not at the sake of who's struggling and Las Vegas. And like I said, you're talking about not just the players being sick. How about all the families and extended families? And are there grandparents involved, older people, at-risk people? And this is where it gets dicey and a real concern for me. Not necessarily the players who are young and healthy, but of course, you never exactly know the risk that they're taking either. So long story short for San Jose, though, they get to be with their families. They get to be home. I would also say, from a pure hockey perspective, and the way things had been going lately, seemed like they kind of ran out of gas on that last trip to Colorado. This is a great opportunity to reset your season early. You played 8 games, no training or no exhibition games, quick training camp. You got to see enough. And now you can stop, hit pause, take a step back, and almost kind of restart your season. And after what's going to be 7 or 8 days without a game, I mean, it's going to feel like a reset all over again. So fortunate in a way that the Sharks could benefit from this opportunity, like I said, in the family perspective, but also the hockey perspective. So that has the chance, and I'm not saying it's a fix for everything, but it has the chance to be a good thing. I'll switch perspectives here. What if the Sharks had won 6 of their first 8 games and they were rolling right now? You probably wouldn't be thrilled that they now have to take what's going to be more than a week off. You wouldn't be excited about that. You'd understand the situation, obviously, but you wouldn't be excited about it. At this point, yeah, I mean, I think, it's probably a pretty good thing to get some more practice time in, to have this reset at this opportunity. On the other side of that, though, let's talk about Las Vegas. Let's talk about any team. Like, for example, the Dallas Stars, who are noteworthy in having to completely shut down their entire facility and not skate together and not practice together and start their season, almost a full week later than everybody else. And, you think about how this season could be affected. And everybody's got predictions, right? And Las Vegas predicted to be one of the top 3 teams in the Western Division. But will this impact them? Will this set them back? What happens if a team like this had this encounter in, let's say, March or April? And now it's going to really affect them for a long term. All I'm saying is that everybody's going through the effort to make this season happen. And they want to have a legitimate season. If you can't have a legitimate season, why are you doing this in the first place? If you have to change rules and change things, completely change them on the fly, the risk doesn't seem worth the reward. And the reward would be finishing a 56-game season as planned, a season with some meaning, a season that was equal for everybody. But yeah, strategy on the other side. If you're taking these breaks like Las Vegas, well, how much does this impact them in a negative way, or anybody else who has to go through it? And how many more teams will have to go through this? It's a tough question to answer. It's an impossible question to answer. You really don't know how COVID is going to continue to spread. New variants, more spreading. I hope that's not the case, but I certainly, like you, do not know. So anyway, we've talked about both sides of this for San Jose and Las Vegas, but now let's talk about the mutual aspect of this, which is the schedule. Now, let me just, cross-pollinate here, show you what February, March, April, and May look like for both teams, and instantly here I see a large break for San Jose. Now, we're also talking here, by the way, we're also first going to consider how could you play 2 games back-to-back. The NHL is all about series. It would make sense to cut down on travel to, meet up in San Jose, because these are Sharks home games. Meet up in San Jose, play these 2 home games, get them done, so that there's only one flight, make it easy. But here's the problem. Look, the Sharks have the 21st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th of February off. Well, I suppose there's a little wiggle room in here for maybe the 23rd for one game. But could you really do that to the Avs? The Avs. Could you do that to the Golden Knights where they'd have to play 3 games in 3 nights? That does not seem doable. And then it ultimately would turn out to be 1, 2, 3, 5 games in 6 nights. That's unheard of. And then you're approaching other safety issues of people getting hurt. So let's go back to this. So maybe you could fit in 1 game here at the end of February. I don't think that's a stretch. But look at all the other options here. For Las Vegas, 17, 18, 19. Well, you kind of can't do that for the Sharks. They're out here on a road trip. And like I said, even for the Golden Knights, they would be in Denver, out to San Jose, out to California. I guess there is some room here for them. But like I said, that is pretty tight. Let's get into March for both teams. Sharks, again, fortunate to have a nice little break here. Problem is, Las Vegas is in Minnesota. Now, at this point, we've already established, we're looking at 2 months ahead here. We've already established getting back-to-back games in might be tough. So there's 2 options to get around this. You play one first, one later, or instead of playing checkers here, like when you look at this, you got to play chess. You got to not only move a Sharks Las Vegas series, you have to move a whole nother series as well too. But then you get into what are the ramifications of that, right? So this is a never-ending domino effect that's going to have to get figured out. So where do you fit in another game? Let's say we could fit in one of those games in late February. So now we're looking here at March for both teams. I really don't see where to do it in March. Okay, well, let's go to April for both of these teams. Once again, the Sharks with a nice stretch off here, but where are the Golden Knights again? They're out in St. Louis. These guys love to be in St. Louis, don't they? What was that? Oh, no, sorry, that was Minnesota before. I thought it was St. Louis twice. My apologies. Same situation though, right? They're gone on a road trip and the Sharks don't really have another opportunity or time or place to do this. So April's kind of shot. Just to recap, February, March, April, maybe room for one game. So let's get into the end of the season and May. And here's the other thing. I guess I forgot to mention this as an option. The entire league is hoping to be done by May 8th. What if you can't? What if you need a little bit of extra time at the end of the season? Are they going to build in some buffer from like May 8th to the 12th or 13th for extra games? But then how do you do that? Because that's a disadvantage for a team that would have to make up like 3 games real quick versus other teams going to the playoffs that don't have anything to do. There's rest, there's rust, it gets way too dicey, way too messy, way too quick. So there's just not the opportunity, again, that I see to make up these games. I mean, you see it, right? You guys see it with me. And I don't know anything here. These are just my own thoughts. I'm just pulling up the calendar like anybody else might be doing at this point. It's really, really interesting to try and figure out how is this going to happen. And the reason I'm so interested in these games getting made up is, like I said before, I mean, is it going to come down to what if the Sharks season is set to be decided on 2 or 3 points? Or Las Vegas in their seeding of a playoff spot comes down to 1 or 2 points. Are you just not going to play the games? Are you going to try your hardest? And if you can't, you can't, and figure out some other way to make it fair and even for everybody? Like, the challenge here is that every other sport had built-in flexibility. Like the NFL, you only play 1 game a week. You could, for the most part, push and pull and gain a few days and find open spots. In baseball season, the art of the doubleheader. And fortunately for all of us this year, it was 7-inning doubleheaders that made it a lot easier on teams so they didn't have to spend a really long day. But I mean, the Oakland A's, for example, in their final, they had a COVID case. And it caused them to not play games for 5 or 6 days. So they had to play 26 games in their final 25 days of the regular season. Like, the NHL just does not have, as far as I can see it, that same flexibility. They don't have a lot of poker chips stacked up in this regard. And I'm not saying that's their fault. This is the nature of the situation. How many more teams and times can this league have setbacks with? Like, how many more times can this happen to the point where now each team has 6 games to make up? And I'm honestly wondering if it's just easier to cut off the end of the season. Let's say you end it, at the very end of April, and you just say, all right, we're going to use the first 8 days of May to fix the games that make the most sense, try and get everybody to an equal number, and then go right into the playoffs. And there'll be some controversy with that. Like, some people, some ways would not be happy. I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get there. And why am I so interested in this? Because, like I said, if you're going to do all these things, if you're going to set the league up, you're going to have everybody take all these precautions, if you can't get to your ultimate goal, then why are you doing it? Why are you going through all this if you can't get there? Now, I'm not saying they can't. I'm just saying that as you look at this simple situation here, there's not a lot of easy answers. So again, I'll go back to it. You saw it just like I did here. There's just not much going in terms of ability to make up dates for San Jose. And real quick, let's look at their schedule ahead. And by the way, if you see something here that I'm not seeing, put it in the comment section below. I would really appreciate that. But as for this, San Jose's got a little roadie to Anaheim and then the LA Kings, so they stay in California. In fact, they stay in California until Anaheim comes back. So hopefully for Team Teal, a month of recovery in February. We know that pretty much all of January, very difficult, almost 40 straight days on the road. Nobody's built for that. I'm glad this weekend the players are with their families. Real quick, shameless self-promotion. Hit me up on Twitter, the Gram. I'm really not active on Facebook, but I do have a profile there. And if you're watching this right now and you haven't subscribed to the channel, it's like right down there. It's right down there. Could you do that? Could you just do that real quick? I'm joking about that, but honestly, I am trying to grow the channel and, trying to make sure that you know when new videos come out. Sharks, A's, sports, production, little aviation, mixing it up here on the channel, but trying to hit all angles where I can provide a little value. So, look, I hope you have a great rest of your Saturday. Do you need music? Should I play you out with little music? I'll do that. I know I didn't pay attention to any of the questions or comments, if there were some, in the live chat, but I just appreciate everybody being here on a Saturday. And so this is, interesting situation for the Sharks. How to make up these games, what to do, but most importantly, and I mean most importantly, human health. I'm thinking about Las Vegas right now, I'll be honest. I really am. The rivalry you see here, those two teams and all the stuff Reeves and Kane and, Marc-Andre Fleury not being a happy camper all the time, that's all out the window. Right now, I'm wishing the very best for the Las Vegas Golden Knights. I'll see you soon.